على محبة مولى الموحدين أمير المؤمنين أسد الله الغالب علي بن أبي طالب غفر الله لكم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. على محبة فاطمة الزهراء غفر الله لكم الثانية بأعلى أصواتكم. على محبة الحسن والحسين غفر الله لكم الثالثة بأعلى أصواتكم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك وعلى أهل بيتك المعصومين. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء. يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم معا. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أخي أبي الفضل العباس بن أمير المؤمنين ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عن أبي عبد الله الصادق عليه السلام قال: يا فضيل أتجلسون وتتحدثون؟ قال: نعم جعلت فداك. قال: إن تلك المجالس أحبها فأحيوا أمرنا. رحم الله من أحيا أمرنا. Enlighten your hearts and your majalis with a loud salawat على محمد وآل محمد. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, with a conversation with his companion Al-Fudayl, he asked Al-Fudayl, do you sit down and talk about us? Do you sit down and talk about our narrations? Do you keep our remembrance alive? Al-Fudayl said, yes, we do. We do everything you said. We do. We gather and we talk about you and about your narrations, and we keep your remembrance. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says, those majalis are the majalis, the gatherings that I love. Those gatherings are what I adore most. And then he says, keep our remembrance going in these gatherings. May Allah have mercy on the person that keeps our remembrance alive. These majalis have extreme importance. When the Imam says that he loves something, the Imam isn't talking from emotions only. It tells us that this topic that the Imam is talking about, whatever the Imam is telling us, is of extreme importance. The importance of majalis is undeniable, and we can have speech after speech about the importance of majalis, of these gatherings that we have. Throughout the speech today, we will have a look at 6 different benefits, inshallah, if the time allows us. And then I will go through and explain each one of these benefits. We'll begin with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The first benefit of establishing these gatherings, the first and utmost benefit is to be a part of the dua of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. That's number 1. I will go through these benefits and then I will elaborate on them. Number 2 is that these majalis is where we gain our knowledge. Number 3, these majalis, the act of sitting and listening to a majlis, to a eulogy, or any speaker can be considered an act of worship. Now, I'm hoping that these questions that I am providing you are raising questions in your mind. Inshallah, I will answer them. Number 4 is it provides us with a spiritual drive and a recharge. Number 5, we recite Ziyarat Ashura, and what are the benefits of Ziyarat Ashura. Number 6 and final is the remembrance of the tragedies that occurred on the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and what does that do to us. Before I get in to the topic, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. As I said, the first benefit of these majalis is to be encompassed, to be covered, to be encompassed by the dua of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. The Imam said, keep our remembrance going. May Allah have mercy on the one that keeps our remembrance. Now, as Shia, we believe that whenever we ask the Imam for dua, whenever we ask whichever Imam for dua, any Imam, the Imam will definitely do dua for us. We believe in intercession. However, at the same time, we should be looking for different situations that we can be encompassed by the dua of the Imam. If we hear a certain Imam saying, do this action and may Allah have mercy upon you, then we should go after that action. Just like a person that's thirsty and does not have water, has no access to water at all. If it starts raining, then that person is going to be looking at capturing every single drip of water they can. It should be the same way when it comes to the dua of our Imam. We should look for how we can be encompassed by the dua and go after that. And that's number 1. Number 2 is these majalis provide us with knowledge. We gain knowledge in these majalis. As you know, we live in a country that doesn't have many facilities that provide people with religious knowledge. If you compare this country to other countries that have larger Shia communities, this country lacks this to an extent. However, you still find that some people have an abundance of knowledge. You still find that some people are spiritually, are religiously smart. They understand the fiqh, they understand many topics when it comes to their religion. When we come to these majalis, one of the main benefits is that we learn from them. We learn many topics. In these majalis, we are able to nurture our beliefs. We are able to build a foundation for our beliefs. We are able to quench the thirst we have for knowledge. This all happens in these majalis. Now, the narrations that we have from the Prophet and from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they all emphasize a lot on gaining knowledge. Many narrations, they tell us it's extremely important to gain knowledge. The number one and most famous narration is from the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family. He says, طلب العلم فريضة على كل مسلم ومسلمة. Seeking knowledge and going after knowledge is an obligation on who? Is it just on the old people that have nothing else to do? Is it just on the young people that are learning? Who is it for? The Prophet says it is an obligation on every Muslim and Muslimah, every Muslim, male or female, young or old. It is an obligation to increase our knowledge. Which knowledge? About our religion. The knowledge regarding our narrations, the knowledge regarding our religion and our faith. Another narration from Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imam Ali says, أيها الناس اعلموا أن كمال الدين طلب العلم والعمل به. That's know, O people, know that seeking knowledge will allow you to have a complete religion. If you want a complete religion, you have to seek knowledge and then apply that knowledge. Now, applying that knowledge is by acting upon it, or by spreading that knowledge. It can be done in different ways. Then the Imam says, and this is very important, he says, everything that the Imam says is important, obviously. The Imam says, ألا وإن طلب العلم أوجب عليكم من طلب المال. Seeking knowledge is more important, is more influential on you than seeking money and sustenance. Now, when the Imam says this, it doesn't mean that we should leave everything aside and prefer one over the other. We shouldn't prefer knowledge over obviously going to work and feeding our families. What the Imam is telling us here is that we have to have a balance between the two. We must balance between the two. We live in a time that people find themselves working so much, working overtime. It might mean we have to sacrifice on some overtime. Some people are either impacted by inflation, or they are scared over the inflation. They go and work and work and work, and they forget totally about anything got to do with their religion. And this is incorrect. They forget about these majalis. They do not attend these majalis. Why? Because I've got 2 jobs. It makes sense. Seeking knowledge does not come easy. Make sacrifice. Explains it very nice why it is seek knowledge, seek sustenance. The Imam says, إن المال مقسوم مضمون لكم قد قسمه عادل بينكم وضمنه وسيفي لكم. What does he say? He says that knowledge, that's money and sustenance, is guaranteed for you. A just person has guaranteed this for you. And Imam says, this person, who is it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the all just, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will fulfill this for you. Allah who has given all of us shares when it comes to our sustenance. The Imam says this, and he says Allah will fulfill this for you. But when it comes to knowledge, it's a different story. When it comes to knowledge, it's not written for us that we get this amount of knowledge, someone else gets that amount of knowledge. We have to seek that knowledge. The Imam says, وَالْعِلْمُ مَخْزُونٌ عِنْدَ أَهْلِهِ وَقَدْ أُمِرْتُمْ بِطَلَبِهِ فَاطْلِبُوهُ. He says that knowledge is secured. It is secured with people that carry the knowledge. These carriers of knowledge, you have been asked, the Imam said, you have been asked to go and seek the knowledge from these people. And then the Imam says, so make sure you do. فَاطْلِبُوهُ. So sustenance and money, that's guaranteed. But knowledge, we have to go after it. We have to make sure we chase knowledge like we chase nothing else. And obviously, the main source of knowledge, when the Imam says Ahlih, the main source of knowledge is Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Now, when it comes to chasing our sustenance or our going to work and gaining money, we find that it's easy in the sense that when we go to work, the product of that is that we make money. And it can be done casually to an extent. But when it comes to knowledge, it's different. When it comes to knowledge, we have to understand one thing. We have to understand that knowledge is extremely important for our livelihood. Knowledge is important for our lives in this world, and it is important for our hereafter. We have to understand this component. Without this component, seeking knowledge is going to be difficult for us. A student once, there was a student, he went to a wise man. He told this wise man, I want to seek knowledge. He told him, you want to seek knowledge? He said, yes. He said, are you sure? Are you ready for this? He said, yes, I'm here. I have my books. I'm ready to seek knowledge. So the wise man told him that seeking knowledge requires patience. Are you ready for this? He said, yes, I'm ready. So he told him, there's a pond of water there. There's a basin of water. Go have a look in that basin and tell me what you see. What do you see in that pond? He went to the basin. He said, I don't see anything. Then the wise man told him, look carefully. Go closer and look. He looked. He said, I can see my reflection in the water. Then he said, look again. Once he looked again, the wise man held the head of the student and he put his head in the water. He drowned his head in the water for a few seconds, then he took his head out. He told him, why did you do that? The wise man said, what was the one thing you were thinking about? What were you thinking about when I placed your head in the water? He said, the only thing I could think about is air, is oxygen. I did not have oxygen. The wise man told him that when it comes to seeking knowledge, you have to have that view. You have to have the view that knowledge is the only thing you need in order to succeed. This is the importance of knowledge. And then the Imams tell us that after we have this knowledge, and I'll quickly mention this, we have to do something with this knowledge. We have to spread this knowledge. We have to disseminate this knowledge. The Prophet ﷺ says, Zakatul ilm ta'limuhu man la ya'lamuh. The zakat. Zakat is the process of taking from what I have and giving it to someone else. That is what zakat is. When it comes to zakat of our money, it is the process of taking from our money and giving it to the poor. The Prophet is zakatul ilm ta'limuhu man la ya'lamuh. To teach it to someone that doesn't know it. That is the zakat of the ilm. And when we give this knowledge, we aren't losing anything. Just like we don't lose anything when we give from what we have from our money. The Prophet also says in another narration, أفضل الصدقة أن يعلم المرء علما فيعلمه أخاه. The best form of sadaqah is for an individual to have knowledge about a certain topic, any topic. Now that you heard these narrations, you understand this. You have some knowledge. The Prophet says the best sadaqah is for you to give this knowledge to someone else. A brother gives it to another brother. You're all brothers. A sister gives it to another sister. We spread this knowledge in our gatherings. When we sit down together outside of these majales, we spread this knowledge. Imam Ali alayhi salam shows us how great the loss of someone that doesn't have knowledge is. How great of a jewel is that person that doesn't have knowledge. How great of a jewel is that person missing. The Imam says, it's 2 lines of poetry. He says, ليس اليتيم من قد مات والده إن اليتيم يتيم العلم والأدب. That the yatim, the orphan, is not the person that has lost their parents. The Imam says rather the orphan is the one that lacks 2 things. They lack knowledge and morals, and good morals. So this is the great importance and the regard that the Ahlul Bayt have for seeking knowledge. When we come to these majales, we learn about many topics. We learn about the tafsir of the Quran. The tafsir of the Quran is the inner meaning of the Quran. We learn about the tafsir of the Quran from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, from the narrations of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Another thing we learn in these majalis is the laws of our fiqh, the laws of jurisprudence. We learn how to correctly fulfill our religious obligations. We learn akhlaq, the religious moral structure. We learn about our aqaid, our belief structure. We build the foundations for our beliefs. Why do we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Why do we believe in the prophets? Why do we have imams? We learn all of this in these majalis. We learn hadith from the Ahlul Bayt. And we learn about Islamic history. So the number 1 place that a lot of people seek knowledge from is these places, these majalis. That's number 2. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Kids, when there's salawat, we have to say salawat with our loud voices. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Benefit number 3 is that these majalis, listening to majalis, is an act of worship. How? Imam Al-Baqir alayhi salam says, من أصغى إلى ناطق فقد عبده. Whoever listens to a speaker, then that listener has worshipped whatever that speaker is talking about. How? What does this mean? The Imam says, if the speaker is speaking, إن كان الناطق عن الله فقد عبد الله. If the speaker is speaking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about a topic that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with, then this listener is worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And listening, the act of listening, is not just to have it in the background. The act of listening is to actively listen and comprehend as we're listening. Then the narration says, وَإِن كَانَ النَّاطِقُ عَنْ لِسَانِ إِبْلِيسِ فَقَدْ عَبَدَ إِبْلِيسِ. If the speaker, whoever the speaker is, and this is not regarding these majalis speak about topics that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased of. If you listen to any speaker that speaks about a topic that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not pleased of, that means who's pleased of this topic? If Allah is not pleased, then who's pleased? The shaitan is pleased. And if this topic is pleasing to the shaitan, then the listener to this speaker is worshipping the shaitan. This is how important us sitting in these majalis and listening is considered an act of worship. Continuous hasanat, continuous good deeds are being written for you as you sit down and listen. Actively listen, as I said. Number 4 is that these majalis provide us with a spiritual recharge. They provide us with spiritual drive. How? Many people say that when Muharram comes around, or on Thursday nights, when I go to the majalis, they come and tell me that we feel different. We feel that we have an urge, we have a push that allows us to perform more religious obligations, allows us to become better people. How? What happens? These majalis do this. And the Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam explains to us why this happens. When we attend these majalis, we feel like we have a push to perform our religious obligations at the best possible form, in the best possible form. The companion of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam asked the Imam, his name is Hamran. He told the Imam, why is it? He went to the Imam for a lesson. He went to his house to learn from the Imam. He asked the Imam, why is it that when I am with you, my heart becomes at ease? When I am with you, I forget all about this worldly matters, about the dunya. Nothing worries me about this dunya. I do not care about anything that the people have. Why is it that this happens? He asked the Imam. And then he told the Imam that why is it? And then when I am away from you for a long time, oh Imam al-Sadiq, when I am away from you for a long time, I feel like my heart becomes hard again. My religious obligations, I don't perform them as good. He was confused why this happens. The Imam said, us humans have a qalb, have a heart. Qalb in Arabic means to flip. The Imam said, you have a qalb. And our hearts, sometimes they lean towards performing religious obligations much better, performing our salat with khushu'. And there are times that this doesn't happen. So what we have to make sure we do is that we feed this heart with the recharge to allow it to perform, to allow it to become soft, and then we can perform our obligations correctly. We do not care about this dunya. That's all we have to do. The verse in the Holy Quran says, وَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَى تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. And remind people, for the reminder will help who? The mu'mineen, the believers. These majalis help us remember the hereafter. They remind us of our religious obligations, of our salat, our siyam, our fasting. They remind us of all of these things. And the reminder is extremely important. Now, this is just the act of attending the majalis. Imagine when the act of attending majalis is added to khidmah, added to serving in these majalis. There's a study that says volunteering in any style, volunteering, it increases certain hormones and brain activity that gives the person that volunteers great pleasure. That's what the studies say. This is just with any type of volunteering. It has this impact on ourselves. Imagine the volunteering and the serving of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in these majalis. What does that do to us? Serving is not an honor anywhere else. If someone is a servant, they're usually looked down upon. They're not respected. But serving Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam gives the servant great value and great statuses. One of our scholars by the name of Sayyid al-Burujardi, this scholar had many lessons. He would he would conduct lessons every day pretty much. So one day he went to his lesson and he started his lesson with a eulogy, with a musibah for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So his students were surprised because he never did that. He usually went straight into the lesson and he began teaching. So after he finished the eulogy, the musibah, he told his students, I will explain to you why we changed our process today, why we had a eulogy today. He said, yesterday night I had a dream that I was in Yawm al-Qiyamah. It was the day of judgment. I went to the gate of heaven. I saw that on every gate of heaven there was one of our imams standing there. One of our imams was standing on each gate that allows a person to enter heaven. He said, I looked at the lines. They were very long. All the lines were extremely long. I went to the line of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. All the scholars were lined up there. And Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam was asking them about each fatwa, each jurisprudence that they gave during their lifetime. He was asking them and questioning them about each one. Not that they're in trouble, not that it's wrong. He was questioning them about it. Imam al-Sadiq is faqih Ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And he is the one that judges all the other fuqaha, all the other scholars. So he said, I looked, all the lines were full except for the line of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He said, the line of Imam Hussein, there was no line. Everyone that came to the gate, Imam Hussein alayhi salam would look at a piece of paper and he would let them through. He said, I went to that line. I straight away went to Imam Hussein. I want to enter heaven quickly. He said, as soon as Imam Hussein saw me, he said, Sayyidina, this is not your line. Your line is the line of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. So the Sayyid said, I told Imam Hussein, but the line of Imam al-Sadiq is so long. I want to be in your line. He said, listen to this. The Imam told him, have you performed any khidmah for me? Have you given water in the majalis? Listen to this. These are all ways that we can perform khidmah. Have you given water? Have you given the turab? Have you cleaned in the majalis? Have you, the Imam was asking him, what have you done? Have you recited a musibah, a eulogy for me? Or have you conducted a majlis that's just in my name? The Sayyid said, no, I haven't. He said, then go to the line of Imam al-Sadiq. The Sayyid said, I woke up and I was saying, I do not want to be questioned by the Imam. I want to be in the line of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. I don't want to be in the line of Imam al-Sadiq. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but he wants to enter. Everyone wants to enter heaven as quick as possible. So he said ever since that dream, he continued to give eulogies and the musibah at the beginning of his lesson. This is the ultimate importance of khidmah. Serving for Imam Hussein. Whatever you can do. Go and ask the people that are in charge, how can I help you today? If not today, then tomorrow. We have to rush for this. This is not something that's going to come for us. We have to go to it. We have to beg for it. That is number 4. Attending the majalis and performing khidmah in the majalis. Number 5 is ziyarat Ashura. The benefit of these majalis when we come here and recite ziyarat Ashura. Ziyarat Ashura and the ultimate benefits of ziyarat Ashura. Who knows the benefits of ziyarat Ashura? If you want to succeed in this life, read ziyarat Ashura. The ziyarat Ashura is the ziyarah that we read at the beginning. If you want sustenance, if you want money, read ziyarat Ashura. If you want to succeed in the afterlife, then read ziyarat Ashura. This ziyarah is of great importance. And I will tell you now why it is of great importance. When someone performs ziyarah for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Imam Hussein helps him in 3, him or her. Imam Hussein helps them in 3 stages. What are they? Imam Hussein helps them when they die. Imam Hussein alayhi salam helps this reciter when they're in the grave. And Imam Hussein helps the reciter when? On the day of judgment. The gate of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. That is the gate that we all have to aim for. Otherwise, the other gates will be standing at them for years and years of the day of judgment. There is a story that's narrated in Mafatih al-Jinan by Sheikh Abbas al-Qummi. Before Ziyarat Ashura, he narrates a story about Ziyarat Ashura. He says, there were 2 people, 2 friends in the city of Yazd. Yazd, a city in Iran. He said these friends, one of them was religious and he worked in a graveyard. The other friend was not religious. So he said one day the friend that's not religious, he died. And the friend that knew him, he knew he wasn't religious. The friend that works in the graveyard, he buried his friend because he died. He buried him in the graveyard. So that friend that works at the graveyard, he was thinking about him continuously. What is his situation now? Is he being punished? Is he in hell? And he felt bad for his friend. What's his situation? At the end of the day, he's my friend and I am worried for him. So he said, 30 days after this friend passed away, I saw him in the dream. This friend told me, when I saw him, first of all he says, when I saw him, he didn't look like someone that was being punished. He looked healthy, clean. He looked very well. I told him, you don't look like someone that's been punished. What happened? I was expecting you to be in the lowest levels of hell now. How are you in such a good situation? This friend said, I don't know. However, what I do know is that 3 days ago, there was a lady that was buried in such and such location. And he pointed to that location. When she was buried there, someone came to her. Imam Hussein alayhi salam came to her in the morning. And then he left. Then the Imam came back in the afternoon. And he left. Then the Imam came the 3rd time. At night, he said when Imam Hussein came for the 3rd time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the angels to lift the punishment from that graveyard. Not from one person only, from everyone in that graveyard. So he said, I don't know why, but this is what happened. So the person that worked in the graveyard, the friend, he went there, he found out who that person was, who that lady was, and he went looking for her family. He went and found someone that people told him was her husband. He went to her, he went to him, he wanted to make sure he was her husband. So he asked him, do you have a wife? He said, yes, I had a wife, but she died. So where did you bury your wife? He said, I buried her 3 days ago in such and such location at the graveyard. He said, that's her. He asked him, has your wife done anything for Imam Hussein? Has she visited Imam Hussein alayhi salam? He said, no. Okay. Has your wife performed a majlis for Imam Hussein? He said, no, she hasn't. Well, has your wife donated money for the majlis of Imam Hussein? No, she hasn't. Why are you asking me these questions? The man that works at the graveyard explained the story. He told him, I saw such and such in my dream. I saw that my friend told me that Imam Hussein visited your wife. And because of his visitation, Allah lifted the punishment from the graveyard. He said, my wife did not do any of these things that you mentioned. My wife did not perform a majlis. She did not recite for Imam Hussein. She did not go to ziyarah. We weren't capable of going to ziyarah, unfortunately. He said, but my wife did one thing. What do you think that thing was? Yes. Worship Allah. But what am I talking about now? Ziyarat Ashura. My wife continued to recite Ziyarat Ashura every single day for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And that is why you saw what you saw. Because of this ziyarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't just look after this lady, but because of Imam Hussein, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lifted the punishment from a whole entire graveyard. So on this day, we should make a vow with ourselves. We should tell ourselves that we will recite Ziyarat Ashura every single day. If we have such a big treasure, how do we let this treasure go? How can we let this treasure go when we know its importance? Recite Ziyarat Ashura for 40 days and have a look. Recite it sincerely and have a look at how it will benefit you. It will change your life. This is the benefit of Ziyarat Ashura, and benefit number 5. Benefit number 6 is the remembrance of the tragedies that happened to Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And what do they do to us? What does the remembrance of the Ahlul Bayt do to us? Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam says in a narration, نفس المهموم لنا نفس المهموم لنا والمغتم لظلمنا تسبيح. The Imam says that the breath of the person that is saddened for us, the breath of the person that is saddened for what happened to us is considered what? It is considered tasbih, supplications. Before I continue the narration, I want to mention something quickly here. You realize that everything that is related or connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a great reward. For example, the month of Ramadan is the month of who? Of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The month of Ramadan is the month of Allah. And that is why when we breathe in the month of Ramadan, the breath of the one that is fasting is considered what? considered tasbih. The Holy Prophet mentions in the khutbah that he read before, the sermon before Shahr Ramadan, he says, وَأَنفَاسُكُمْ فِيهَا تَسْبِيحٌ. Your breath in this month is considered tasbih. Anything related or connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us great rewards. Anything that we do in the month of Holy Ramadan, the holy month of Ramadan is great, gives us great rewards. When it comes to Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, because of their connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, anything we do for the Ahlul Bayt also contains great rewards. The narration of the Imam says, Nafasul mahmum lana. The Imam says in his ziyarah, in ziyarat Ashura, Assalamu alayka ya thar Allah wa ibn thar. That peace be upon you, O avengee of Allah. The one that Allah will take this vengeance. Peace be upon you. Who? Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein is thar Allah, the avengee of Allah. This avengee of Allah, if we are saddened for him, then our breath is considered tasbih. And then the Imam continues in the narration, he says, وَهَمُّهُ لِأَمْرِنَا عِبَادَةً. That their care, the care for what, if someone cares for what happened to us, then this care is worship. Worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So with this great importance, the sadness for Ahlul Bayt gives us such great rewards. We gain this sadness when we attend these majalis. When we attend these majalis, we are able to remember their calamities and cry for them. There are great rewards for the person that cries for the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Imam Zayn al-Abidin said, أيما مؤمن دمعت عيناه لقتل الحسين ابن علي دمعة. Whoever cries for the son, Imam Hussein, the son of Ali, and their tear comes to their cheek, ودمعت حتى تسيل على خده بوأه الله بها غرفا يسكنها أحقابا. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if someone cries for Imam Hussein and their tears come to their cheek, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant this person rooms in heaven that they will live for years and years, for centuries. Another narration from the Imam says, من بكى وأبكى فله الجنة. Whoever cries or makes someone cry for Imam Hussein, then they deserve Jannah, heaven. Another narration says, listen to this. Another narration says, whoever pretends to cry, فَلَهُ الْجَنَّةِ مَنْ تَبَاكَى فَلَهُ الْجَنَّةِ. If you pretend to cry, then this might encourage someone else to cry. And this will guarantee you heaven as well. This is the great importance of crying for the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. So with knowing this great importance, how can we not spend our lives in majalis like this? Doesn't matter what we have to do outside of these majalis. Do we actually think that if we don't come to these majalis and sacrifice something for these majalis, then the Ahlul Bayt won't make it up for us? Most definitely the Ahlul Bayt will make it up for us in some way or another. There was once a lady, listen to this, once a lady, she lived with her husband and son. One day her husband passed away, and then not long after her son passed away as well. She was left alone. So she made a promise to her son in the grave that I will visit you every single day and read Quran. So every single night she would go there after Salat al-Isha and read Quran on his grave. One night in Muharram, she was walking to the graveyard. All of a sudden, she came across a Majales. She walked past a place and she heard a reciter reciting a eulogy, a musibah for Imam Hussein. So she said, my ears, it captured my ears. And I followed the sound. I went after it. And I sat down in the majlis and I began crying. I could not hold myself anymore. I began crying heavily for Imam Hussein. It was such a sad story. It made me forget everything and just cry. After that majlis finished, she asked, where is this reciter going? Is this reciter going to go somewhere else and recite? They told me, yes, he's going to recite at such and such place. She said, I followed him. I went after him. I sat down in that majlis and I cried. After that majlis, he was going to another place. Those reciters in these countries, this was in Karbala. The reciters in those countries, they go to many majales in one night sometimes. She said, I followed him. All of a sudden, I remembered that I had a promise to who? My son. I had told my son that I will go to his grave every night. She said, I became worried that I will not make it to the graveyard before it closes. She said, I rushed. She said, I rushed to the graveyard in order to make it in time. When she arrived there, she found a lady sitting down at the grave. A lady was sitting down at her son's grave. She said, I did not want to disturb her in case she was confused. She seemed very upset. So I went and sat down next to the lady and I quietly told her, by the way, this is, if you have someone that passed away, then this is not them. This is my son. The lady that was sitting on the grave, she told her that, do you actually think that you forgot your son and you went to the majlis and cried for my son and you thought I will forget your son? Impossible. That lady was who? Was Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. Whatever we do, whatever we sacrifice to attend these majalis and cry for Imam Hussein and what happened to Imam Hussein, Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam will help us with whatever it was. No matter what it was, have that belief. One of the first people to perform a majlis for Imam Hussein alayhi salam was al-Banin. Salamullah ala al-Banin. The narrations say that she used to go to the graveyard, to the Baqi'. She used to draw 5 graves on the ground. One for each of her sons. She had 4 sons. And then one for her son Al-Husayn ibn Ali alayhi salam. She used to sit down and cry on the graves that she drew. And people would go past her and see her crying, so they would start crying as well. Al-Banin alayhi salam sent her 4 sons with Imam Hussein, and she told them to make sure they defend their Imam until their last breath. She told them to make sure they die before their Imam. A man by the name of Bishr ibn Hadlam, he came to the city of Medina, at the gate of city of Medina. After the tragedies of Karbala, he says the people of Medina did not know about what happened in Karbala yet. He said, I came to the gate of Medina, I saw Imam Zainul Abidin with his family members, with Sayyidah Zainab and the rest of the ladies. So the Imam asked Bishr, he told him, Ya Bishr, are you capable of reciting poetry? Your father was capable of reciting poetry for us Ahlul Bayt. So Bishr told him, yes, my master, I am capable of reciting. So the Imam told him, Ya Bishr, go inside the Medina and inform the people of the tragedy of Karbala, the calamities of Karbala. So Bishr went inside the Medina. He began calling out to the people, Ya Ahl Yathrib la muqama lakum biha. That, oh people of Yathrib, how do you have patience to stay in this city? How do you have the patience to be in the city of Medina after what has happened? The people came to Bishr. They asked him, what has happened, Ya Bishr? Why are you calling out for this? Bishr said that the message will be at the grave of the Holy Prophet, at the mosque of the Holy Prophet. So the people went after Bishr and he was calling. He kept calling, Ya Ahl Yathrib la muqama lakum biha. That, oh people of Yathrib, I have news for you. Come and listen to what I have to say. What do you have to say, oh Bishr? قتل الحسين فأدمعي مدراره. That my master Hussein has been killed and my tears are heavy for my master Hussein. And then he begins to tell them what happened in Karbala. He says, الجسم منه بكربلاء مضرجون الولد والرأس منه على القناة يدار. That his body has been left. His body was on the plains of Karbala. It was soaked in blood. And his head was taken from village to village for the people to look at it, for the people to see it. So al-Banin hears the commotion. She hears the people crying. She doesn't know what happened. She comes out. She sees Bishr in the Holy Prophet's mosque. She tells him, Ya Bishr, what has happened? al-Banin does not know what happened in Karbala yet. The Bishr tells her, Ya al-Banin, he does not know how to start. He pauses for a moment. He says, I will tell her step by step of what happened. I do not want to break her heart all at once. So he says, Ya al-Banin, عظم الله لك الأجر بولدك عثمان. That, oh al-Banin, I give you my condolences for your son Uthman. She says, I do not want to know about my son Uthman. I want to know about my son Hussein. Tell me what happened to my son Hussein. Is he alive or not? Bishr said, I don't want to tell her about her son Hussein. Her heart will be broken. So I said, Ya al-Banin, عظم الله لك الأجر بولدك جعفر. That, oh al-Banin, my condolences to you. Your son Ja'far has also been killed. She tells him, Ya Bishr, I do not ask you about my son Ja'far or anyone or Uthman. I ask you about my son Hussein. He says, Ya al-Baneen, Ya al-Baneen, عظم الله لك الأجر بولدك عبد الله. That my condolences go to you for your son Abdullah. He was your third son that was killed in Karbala. So she tells him, I did not ask you about Ja'far or Uthman or Abdullah. I ask you about my son Hussein. Please tell me about him. So he says, now I have to reach the hard part. They say that al-Baneen had a child on her shoulders. This child was the son of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas ibn Amir al-Mu'mineen. He was the son of Qamar Bani Hashim. He says, I told her, Ya al-Baneen, عظم الله لك الأجر بولدك يا بالفضل العباس. So they say that the child fell from her shoulder. She could not stand anymore. She told him, Ya Bishr, قطعت نياط قلبي أسألك عن الحسين. Said, my sons are all sacrifices for Hussein. Their master is Hussein. He said, I had no option anymore. I had to tell her about what happened to Hussein. So he says, Ya al-Baneen, عظم الله لك الأجر بولدك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين. He was also killed, your son. My condolences for Hussein, for he was killed on the plains of Karbala. He was left with no clothes. He was killed thirsty along with your other sons. So al-Baneen, as soon as she heard this news, she began calling out, and we call out with her, Ya Hussein, 3 times, Ya